I'm wanting to talk about and wanting to expose more about the conspiracy cult, which I come across quite a long time ago now, which is quite a few years ago. I wanted to expose the information which I know about them as their cult society and how it's working in our society today. The cult society that I'm talking about and the information that I have been given, I am going to share on this video. We are now living among a cult society cult that works together in unity. It's a cult society. I've also been told it does have the devil worship involved, so they're into Satanism. But how they're working as people, as a secret circuit of people, is to look at themselves with more superior than those that are not a part of what they are. Now, what this cult society does when it finds someone that it doesn't like, for an example, such as a victim, which they go out of their way to abuse and try and put under their sort of control, is they're prepared to use a lot of mind control tactics. And what they do is they are constantly planting seeds into your mind. And the behaviour of the cult society that I know of plays a manipulation where it's to constantly, if they've got a powerful way of doing it, keep the victim under their control. I know this from my experience because I've experienced it. I've lived with them in a cult shared house where I found a property on spare room. And I had information exposed to me that I was to watch these people because I was living in a house where they were secretly connected, but they were pretending that they wasn't. To put in more information, what I'm talking about a shared property, such as when you find a landlord, you give the landlord a call on the phone. So I found a landlord on spare room. I gave a landlord a call on the phone by finding their number on spare room, and I ask them if they've got any spaces for me to move into the property. And that's what I did when I found this landlord. And this place that I did go and live in, I was then told that the people that were in there were connected to this conspiracy cult. Now, I'm talking about the conspiracy cult which I exposed on my YouTube. I think it's been 6, 7, 8 years ago. In total, I think it was about 6 to 9 years ago that I came across their abuse. And I was under their violent attack. I try to always be very careful about what I expose about it on YouTube and how I expose how their cult society works. And the reason why is because the cult society that they are, when they work together, using their people powers against victims and people and whatever plans they use, they go about these things in such dangerous ways. And if they're not going about it in dangerous ways, they'll always try and find a way of planting it into your mind that you're under their very vicious attack in some way or some form. What I want to expose and show to people, I think, knowing what I know about this sort of conspiracy, secret society, cult group that they all are, is how they get into the mind. I was even once told that I had a camera which was once planted in my room. And also what they're also planning against us as victims in the society, because they look at their society as being the only society that's in control. I don't know how true it is, but that it's possible that they're using certain devices where they can, like, for example, if they're living above you, they can look down and see you through the ceiling, and they can also see you through your walls. Now, it sounds crazy, but what I'm trying to say is that apparently it's like a technology where it cannot see you completely visibly, as in seeing the way you see me in colour and everything now. It's like it sees you as an object. So when you're concentrating and your mind is, for example, you're watching TV or you're reading a book and your concentration is on nothing else but that. And what these people do to play on the victim's mind is they come in and find a certain noise, like loud noises, to distract you. And what the power game in what they do is to use this mind manipulation, whether they've set up like a camera on you or whether they're using that technology, however true it is supposed to be, is so that they can constantly be in the victim's mind, so that you're not living in your own peaceful mind, but you're living under, say, their cult society control that they're all about. And they're using all of these tactics so that they can basically just work on your peace. You know, that is what their intentions are. They want to crush the victim. And they're working this in all sorts of different ways. You know, I want people to bear in mind also that this cult society group that they are come from all sorts of powers of life. They can be working in any job. They can be working in our police service. They could be working in all sorts of our service jobs. And they all gain their power by literally sharing information together. Of course, we're now living in a world, wakey, where we're living in a world where we're living in inscription, when we use WhatsApp, when we use Telegram. There's so many ways now that they can behold and keep a secret conversation. So when they want to run certain secrecy and they want to share things where it can't be looked at, they know what they're doing. You know, they know that they can just communicate in this way. But most of all, what I strongly want people to wake up to, and what I think's only fair to expose about this very controlling evil that they are, and how they've been working on their very controlling cult society evil for a long time, is for us to actually know the real truth. And to be highly honest, to actually knock down that evil power that they think that they're going to use against victims. They tend to target the type of hearty people. Now, when I'm talking about hearty type of people, I'm going to use someone really famous in the world that I really much adored and loved. You know, someone, for an example, like Princess Diana. The people that walk around and just want to be compassionate towards people, and it only comes across you're only full of good intentions. This really rattles the cult society that they are. That they've got a very problematic feeling from people that come across really compassionate and thoughtful and kind. And I believe that this is kind of how I fell into their trap of being their victim when I met them in the property, when I met them a long time ago. Bearing in mind I met the two cult members that caused this problem, and they were Polish people. It's meant to be like a cult society where the secrecy runs. I'm not entirely sure how they literally always find each other, how they all eventually invite people in the cult society that they are. But there's a way that they've done that, and I've even heard that apparently it even connects, believe it or not, around the nations. So they use certain secretive social networking sites in some way or form. That's only how I understand it. So they use all these sort of secret platforms in order to communicate, in order to talk about what they talk about. And they are definitely dangerous people. When they've got a problem with someone, they will go out of their way to have you hurt. They want to control and they want to manipulate, but they've got such a love for control. And what they do is they constantly stay in the victim's mind. And what the biggest powerful thing that they try to do, especially when they know that they can kind of get you living in, for example, the same shared property, or if they're all working together, for an example, in a retail store, and they know they can bully the victim that's nothing like them and that has no connection to what they're about, is that they find psychological ways to always manipulate the mind. And they're always finding a way that constantly basically harasses you and interferes with your peace, such as finding ways to annoy you in any way or form that they can possibly find. And this is really what I really want to get to the bottom of in this video and really expose exactly how that works. I would say more enthusiastically that how the cult society works is a bunch of narcissists. Now, for those that don't understand the narcissist term, I'm talking about that it's a type of cult society group where they all share that same importance. They all feel that they're more self-important than everybody else that's not a part of their, say, secret circuit of people that they all are. So, really, I'm talking about that they're living with a very narcissist behaviour. But it seems to me, the ones that I come across myself, that they come across as if they do suffer with the narcissist disorder. Could it just be a coincidence that a lot of problematic people that are not very nice people, that are evil and dangerous, have found some sort of power becoming connected to the cult, and because they are not that, because they do suffer with the narcissist disorder, that they think to themselves, if I join this certain group of people, it will give me that feeling of power and that feeling of self-importance, because they are always working together to empower one another in ways that they do things. I was told what they were doing to me when they chose me as a victim, and apparently I always used to feel that I was being watched. So what I'm trying to explain is, when I got told apparently that there was a secret camera hidden in my room and that they had been watching things, I don't know how true it is, it could be complete nonsense, that I was finding every single time I'd be focused on the TV, I'd be focused on reading my book, that this noise would be created very constantly. And it's always like when you're tucked away in your own self-aware mind, but you're only focusing on your own thing. But what the cult do to the victim is they constantly find a distraction, which constantly distracts your peace and distracts your concentration in that moment of time. So as soon as you're concentrating on that TV, as soon as you're concentrating on that book, they then find a way of constantly, where your brain's not getting the peaceful break that you wish to desire, that your attention is always focused onto them. And this is what they've done to me for a very, very long time. They share their information amongst each other as well by finding face pictures of you, and then they send it over the social networking sites. They share it amongst their cult society group. And that's just basically how they'll try and, find ways to cause you a lot of trouble. But this, most of all, if I've pretty much explained it all clearly, is what they do. It's a very narcissistic sort of disorder personality that a lot of them have. And they can't allow someone to always concentrate on their own concentration. So they hate it when you're always concentrating in your own world, when you're focused on yourself and when you're doing things for yourself. and they always just literally are trying to find ways to constantly control their victim and to constantly sort of be in the victim's mind. But what they also do is they like to plant dangerous threats in your mind for you to believe their actions, so that you believe if you're going to do a certain something in a good way, or you're doing something because you've got your own self-control in your own life, that they love to give you that impression to believe it in your head when they're feeding all these seeds and thoughts into your mind, that you are to believe that if you go and do that, that there'll be something always standing in your way, and that there'll always be that dangerous threat that's there to stop you from being the person and doing the things that you want to do. You know, hopefully that does make sense. So as soon as they basically see you in your comfort zone, this narcissist cult that finds its victims like it found me wants to constantly find a way that always constantly grabs the attention of the victim. It's a cult society that right now, today, as we talk, that's made a very, say, big circuit of people where they want it to be, apparently I've been told, a formed society, which sometimes is very interesting, I think, to hear, because I've heard of like living, you know, for an example, in a new, you know, when you hear, and I'm holding back a little bit because I'm a bit nervous to say it, because of course things that I'm talking about, it's dangerous stuff, and I know how you can be under constant attack from these people, and they don't like being exposed, and they don't like being spoken about. But I don't know if I want to say it, but I think I'm going to say it. Like a New World Order system, where the New World Order system has been exposed on YouTube many times, and you can find many videos where it talks about how the New World Order system will be something that, for an example, is to create like a reform in society, and that's how they look at it. They all believe that they're the people that are a part of the conspiracy cult, that they're all a part of, so they're sort of, say, their secret cult society that they are, and they believe that one day they will be the rulers. So I suppose, like, in some way it's like they all kind of believe that they're the elite, and that they are the only sort of elite of society, and that's how in control that they want to be. So I think I am really trying to say that I think it's quite possible that maybe they are the type of people that are linked and have secrecy in knowing about the secrets about a New World Order plan, very possibly in some way, because it is such a very big evil cult system which they're running together in their, say, secret cult society group that they all are. Yeah, and I think, like, that is really the best way to describe it. But they do, all I know is just the best way to kind of describe it in words is that they believe their cult society system that they're running at the moment, they want it to become something else. So they want to be the ones that are like VIP, like very important people only, and the rest of those that are not a part of it have to go kind of by like a new rule book, if that makes any sense. And I don't know how true entirely it's meant to be with information that I got told about them, like however true that side of it is. But coming across these type of people and how controlling they are, and putting up with their behaviour and watching how they react and behave towards people that they don't like, you know, such as the victims that they go out their way to cause trouble for. It's definitely the way it seems that they are just purely about control, you know, and this is why they always play these constant mind games, these constant conflicting narcissist disorder, like behavioural patterns, where they find someone that's completely different from what they are, and then they put that victim under their attack because they know that they're not a part of the same thing. We're those that are not a part of it, we're not the same people. We're not of the evil that they are. And when they smell that you're not the same evil, that you're not out there to do the stupid, silly things they do. You're not out there to compete against people and cause fights. You just literally create peace. We create peace, right, by being a hearty person. I think that is the best way that we live our lives as human beings, to be the best people that we are. We live in a hearty way. We give, we care about people around us, we're helpful, etc. And of course, on the opposition from all of that is evil. Evil is never interested in any of them things. And as soon as it sees that difference, that's when their victims go under its attack. So they don't like seeing anything that's different from what they're all about. And that is really what literally their plans are all about. They see a plan to take over in the cult society that they are. And they honestly, truly do believe that they are above everybody else. They believe their abusive, evil ways and the ways they see to run life is the only way to go about it, and is the only right way in their viewpoint. And bearing in mind, however true that this type of cult society that I'm aware of as a victim is of course connected to the Satanism as well, and that's really what their cult is all about. Their god apparently is Satanism, as crazy as it slightly sort of sounds, and this is kind of all of these things that I'm talking about, is their way that they try and get a message across. And I just don't think that any of us should be silenced about how they work today. The cult society, which I have exposed and spoke about, and this is like extra information which I think's fair to be exposed and leaked about them, are the type of cult society that when they want to take a fight further, they're using weapons. In a shared property, I was threatened with a knife, and I want to be very careful about how I explain the story for my own protection, of course, which I really hope people can understand. And I think that's only understandable. And I think that's all I'm going to say on the matter. I know that they're very, very capable of being that dangerous, and that's how controlling they are. You only have to be in an argument with one of these cult individuals, and the way they see to go about an argument is to sort it out with violence, and they're instantly violent as well. They're very, very violent people. So when you find that you ever get into some sort of argument form with them, they're always very prepared to, create a conflict by threatening you straight away. For example, they'll be like, "Do you want me to smack you on?" And they use these things as like a tactic control to always stand above its victim. They're always trying to use constant dangerous fear in order to feel like they're like levels up higher than you. And they're just very, very controlling people, and it's a very, very controlling cult society, and they're lovers of it. I want to make really sure why I sit back and think that I've exposed enough on this video for people to realise and understand, because I think this is an evil power within the group of people that clearly, I would say knock down, but when I say knock it down, of course I'm talking about going about that victoriously. I'm not talking about fighting back with them, and I'm not talking about wrestling with these people. Personally, I've always found these people very mentally sick. like their mind frame is not always it's not the same as someone that lives in the normality without any mental health form. So I do find that the states of their mind is always it's just always very conflicting, very confrontational. They're not very understanding. They don't understand on the same level that a sensible-minded person does. You know, they see to go about things in a very, this is basically a very confrontational way only. I think the best way that really, it's like all situations when someone is the one that becomes conflicting, it only really works in a connection with someone when you're being gentle about it. You know, you talk it through calmly, peacefully. And I think that this is the way that's got to be knocked down in the same very way. You know, I think that this is how they need to be dealt with. I think that their evil abuse needs to be exposed. I think that the controls that they're using against us as victims, for those that they do use as a victim, something definitely needs to be done about it. We can't be relaxed with this sort of evil abuse and evil control that they like to use. You know, how far does it go? How dangerous does it get? And why is it fair on any innocent person that's done no wrong to be, you know, like under any form of their control in whatever way that they see fit to use against us as victims, you know, just because we're not a part of what they are. They really feed off of energy, and they really feed off of always standing in your way in whatever way or form they can. And what they really feed off is really trying to drag you down as a person. It's made me really disbelieve and distrust the society system around us, such as police, hospitals, and stuff like that as well, because I know the truth and because I know what the cult society is and what it's all about. So, therefore, I always live with that kind of fear, and I think it's created... I don't really like using the word paranoia because there's reasons to feel paranoid, so I would actually say it's a high suspicion, because you're always wondering, you know, in my mind, going through what I went through, where are these where are these cult, where is this cult group working at, you know, where are they? Is it the next police officer that talks to me, you know, when I make a police report? Because, you know, this is how they all run their circuit of people, and what they do is they're always constantly leaking information to one another as well in the cult society that they are, and this is how they're keeping the control. They keep the control by constantly keeping the information within the secret circuit that they are. And I'm sure to everyone that only makes sense. But I think the most disgusting thing that's going on at the moment, and this is what I'm really trying to explain in this exposed video about them, is how they are using this sort of very strong mind manipulation, where you're not allowed to be in your own focused mind at peace, where they know that they've always got another way of being in your mind. So they stress the mind, and they always find a way by putting themselves into your head, by creating these distractions that they in order to create. And what it always does is it always puts you focused on the problem, and then your mind becomes in the distress of always living in like the problems of what they're all about, and that's how they kind of create some form of sort of self-importance in the secret cult group that they all are. And you'll always find that they are the type of people, they don't actually admit that they're a part of the secret circuit of the cult conspiracy group that they are. They'll never dare admit it. They'll always just play you off in ways that they like to kind of almost pretend, if you stand them on the spot and try and tell them how wrongful you felt their abusive ways were, that they argue against you and try and play you off that you're not right about that, and that it's in your head, and that their ways about going about something, wasn't the right the right perceiving way of looking at what they really done. And this is what I'm talking about. They're very sort of sickly, mentally abusive sort of mind forms of their harassment is, it's like that. What I'm saying is it is narcissistic. It's very like narcissist disorder behaviour. And I think it is just clearly possible that this is how they drag up and find a lot of the people that become a part of their cult society group. That they find the narcissist disorder people that suffer with these mental health forms, and they're easily dragged into it. And the reason why is because the narcissist behavioural ways of a narcissist is very self-important, and they see a relationship, for an example, when they're in love, as very one-sided. The information tells you this on the internet if you look at it as well, such as the narcissist only really has a lot of self-thought for themselves. They take their thoughts and feelings into consideration a lot stronger than someone else, and they're never in the wrong. The mental disorder in the mind is where they'll always find conflicts with someone that tries to sort of maybe be the person that, for an example, is taking care of something, or as soon as you tell them, please don't talk to me like that's really rude, for an example, and then straight away they're very conflicting people where they don't always react as someone does in normality, but how their reaction will be is very confrontational and very, very aggressive and very argumentative. And then they may then, for an example, use an example about you and then try and turn the matter on you and change the subject by talking about the type of person you are. And these are the very sort of narcissist, disorder-like people the cult conspiracy group are. They're very like that. And I'm not entirely sure if that is because a lot of them have got like mental disorders in the narcissist disorder way, which might sound a bit funny to some people, but if you know what narcissist is, the people out there will honestly know what I'm talking about. And yeah, I just think that is the biggest interesting thing about it, that they're all very narcissist. And it doesn't matter how they abuse people, it doesn't matter how wrongful they are, all the controls they put down in place and all the controlling manipulated behaviour to always make the victim think about what they've got to do in their freedom and in their free will all the time. That narcissist behaviour, I'm losing it's forgetting what I'm saying, but that narcissist behaviour when they're doing these things to be in control, is how the cult society what works. And then all the time that there's a wrong, they're always almost trying to find a way that they can try and avoid the way it is. They're always trying to kind of like shake it off. That wasn't me. And this is what I'm trying to explain about the way that they constantly work. So they've always got I think at the moment what I'm talking about is the mind control of it, the mind manipulation of the way the cult society works. So I think the only way that it makes sense, they try to keep the victim's mind and our minds focused in the problem, so that our minds are always pulled to it. So therefore, I think if we're always living our mind in the problem, it's always like they're living in our mind. and it's a bit like we're always living in theirs. Do you know what I mean? Does that make any sense to anyone? Like when you be looking at this and then listening to what I'm saying. So they find a way that they literally, it always feels like they're always with you. They can't handle the thought of you always being free and going your own way about life, but they're always dragging you in. And I believe that they do this in a way that they want to kind of alter the mind into a mind state where almost you're becoming mind controlled, and you're lumbered into like this state of confusion, and you're lumbered into this also state of living in their fear. And then all these things that they kind of try and plant in the mind, they then constantly try and have used as a control, so that all the time it's in your mind, you're always thinking about what you're doing, you're always worried about what you're doing, and then you're always worried about how what you're doing might be distracting them. But all it really actually is a control feature of theirs that they use in the abusive mind control that they are. And it is one of the most powerful things that they do try and do. But the thing is, with this like cult secret circuit group of people that they are trying to use behavioural tactics which are really dangerous and abusive, such as threatening people with weapons and making death threats and going to the extremes of we'll do this to you, so you better watch yourself sort of behaviour. And I think of course, in my opinion, being a victim of theirs, this is disgusting and it's got to stop. And it shouldn't be allowed. It's dangerous and it is really bad. It's an evil that really gets a lot of fun out of the abuse that it gives. And I think the fact that they're using such domineering people power against a victim and against people is so wrongful. They can try and be in control, but they're not in control. They can only try and be in control by doing the very things that they do, playing with the mind in psychological ways, threatening people with threats, and doing their very best to wrestle against someone's good intentions, someone's goodwill. And it is just wrong. It really is just standing in the person's way as much as they possibly can in order to try and create some control. And they do this in all their relationships, and it's a thing that's meant to be going on in their cult society all over the place. It's meant to be a very big fixed society. And I won't go into absolute detail. I have deleted one or two videos from YouTube where I expose more about the group. And the reason why is because I felt the information that I slightly spoke about put me in a bit more danger, and it put me in a lot of danger about the fact they don't like to hear it. This is me talking about my story and my experience about what I've gone through in this conspiracy cult that they are, and to raise the awareness. I think that they want us to fight. I think they want to fight with people as well. I think they, of course, when they're a part of this cult conspiracy circuit of people that they are, that I think they look at really, like, now that they've made this society form together, that they look at it as its empires. So I think if they were to find a side where, for an example, you got two different secret society forms, or you got two different cults, and they collide over a problem, And I think that's what they want. They love that world. They love that world of fighting. They're dangerous people. They're into, fighting. They're into threats. It's how they get their pleasure. And this is why they start on such victims that they've got a problem with when, they go about something to create the way they are. And I think we can really only knock this down still with good intentions. I think that, even though I do have a lot of distrust, that I think it's always best as soon as we get in these situations, if we find these people in shared housing when we're renting, that we do still expose the abuse to the police. And we do what we can to protect ourselves. And, I think to never silence, and just don't suffer in silence about the evil abuse that these people are. Don't suffer in it. Talk to people, talk about it. And don't, in my viewpoint and experience, don't wrestle back with these people. Don't argue with them, don't fight back. Unless, of course, you're ever in such severity where you're caught in a corner and you needed to use self-defence. And then, of course, we know that self-defence is always within reason when it's to protect your own life. But, I mean, apart from that, don't fight with these people, because we're different from that, and that's what they want. They want the fight. And it will never solve anything. Going by good intentions and going in with peace is really the only way to really knock down how wrong and how stupid and abusive these people are. This really is the best thing to do, And I think it is the best tactic to tackle this evil, that is attacking us in this very secret group that they are, And I mean, there was an example just now. I mean, I'm sitting here on my space. She knows, this lady knew I wasn't talking to her. I'm talking on my video. And then she just said something about, when I mentioned the word abusive, and he said, could I talk louder? Yeah, I'm talking loud and clear for my video. I mean, it's got nothing to do with her. But yeah, that was someone that just shouted something out to me. It's got nothing to do with her. This is a personal video. I'm recording the video over here. It's got no faces involved, so no one's face is involved but mine. Yeah, again, just a clown that wants to come along and try and cause conflict. Go away and get a life. I think I've said some piece in this video. I don't know if it's going to be good enough and whether the information is enough for us to understand and know of. But why should we be put under an evil, abusive control by any form of people? And it should be known about what they do, because the very evil, abusive things that they're doing, it's not acceptable and it shouldn't stand. And they shouldn't be allowed to do what they do. And, good people still need their freedom. And everyone needs freedom. And if it's control and it's abuse, it's just not right. It's a wrestle of abusing a victim of their own free will, and they're always using powerful tactics and ways of always trying to manipulate and control the victim. And it really literally is just because they don't like the way things are. But I really do believe the more that we do truly stand on being this really good person that we are, and if we're not the same conflict that they are, and we don't give the same conflict that they're giving us, that what can they do? What can they do to me? What can they do to you? We're only fighting with them, really, if we end up fighting back. And whenever it comes to a dangerous fight, we only ever fight back in self-defence if we ever need to. We're not of the evil. We're of something good. And we only make a situation worse if we are to fight back with them. And in my experience and in my opinion, I think that's what I've learned, that we don't need to We don't need to do that. It's not the way to do it. You know, I think with an evil thing, when you're under its attack, that throw so much goodness and kindness at it. You know, just be good. You know, I don't know if anyone has ever heard of that saying so much out there. If you ever get, if those of you that get to see this, yeah, like if you ever respond back to a controversy, so if you respond back to someone's conflicting ways, if you respond back gently, it creates more peace than it does to respond back in an aggressive way in the same way that the person does. And I think that this is the kind of sort of kept under control that this evil deserves, because it wants to fight with us, and it's what it wants. You know, they're all about they're all about war, and they want war. They want war with an individual. They want the competition of come and have a fight with me, and then I'll show you. And that's exactly what these intentions of these people are in this secret circuit cult group that they are. But it's just not acceptable, and I don't believe that the people powers that they're hiding behind and the people powers that they use against people should be allowed. And it needs to be exposed, because this abuse cannot happen, and it needs to stop. And these people, you know, they need to be exposed for what they're doing, because it is just wrong, and it does have an effect on someone's life.